And to culture wars. I'm so old that I was inspired to fight racism by the speech that Martin Luther King gave. Didn't see it at the time. I studied it at school a decade later. It still gives me goosebumps every time.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Now, I still think that is the ultimate expression of true anti-racism. But today, Martin Luther King would be treated like some right-wing racist saying that. Sometimes like I am. Because the anti-racists today want to bring back the racial division that he fought, and even the segregation he fought.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
That, sitting down together, is exactly not what the modern anti-racist wants. Not in the US, for instance, where Columbia University, one of the most famous universities there, is planning to hold 6 additional graduation ceremonies, apart from the normal one, for students according to their race and other aspects of how they identify, gender, sexual inclination, whatever. But race. And the same poison's here too. Queensland University even banned white students from its Aborigines-only computer lab. Joining me on Culture Wars is Rowan Dean, author, editor of The Spectator Australia and host of Outsiders on Sky News every Sunday at 9 a.m. Rowan Dean, lovely to speak to you, but
good to see you, Andrew.
Honestly, today's Martin Luther King. How would his speech go today, do you think? I have a dream where one day my 4 daughters will be judged by the colour of their skin and will have a blacks-owned graduation ceremony at a university with a blacks-only computer lab.
Yeah, exactly. Martin Luther King would be horrified by the America of today, not only because he fought against the very things that are happening, but because he literally did dream of an America in which racial differences, sexual differences, tribal differences of any sort were literally invisible, had all disappeared, whereas a brotherhood of man. And a lot of the idealism of the 60s, through the songs, and you remember Coca-Cola ad where everybody of different races standing around sharing the one drink. Nowadays, yes, ads are all about division. They're all about, even Coke, every ad is for a different person or a different subset. So we've gone from this idea of a brotherhood of man, which was a idealistic dream, but Martin Luther King was very specific in how to achieve that dream, and that was by focusing on character. Character must trump everything, he said. Character is ahead of any other definition, so judge every individual by their moral character, their merit as a person who strives to do good in the world. So this idea now that merit, and even, as you mentioned, the university there, and it's not just that university, there are others who are doing similar things, are saying, no, your real achievement in coming to university is not whatever grades and whatever course you may have studied, and let's face it, most of those are pretty worthless these days, but which tribe you fitted into and which identity group you are now a party to. And we will celebrate that as being your great achievement. Now, this is the crudest, most basic form of Marxism, dividing people into different groups so you can control them and rule over them, divide and conquer. It's the oldest idea in political, in tyranny, basically. And this is what we're seeing, the new tyranny where you must belong to that tribe. And it goes right to the top, because don't forget that Joe Biden said last year, if you're not black, if you don't vote for me, you can't possibly be black. Yeah.
Correct. Honestly, and it also, to me, encourages a woeful habit that we're seeing more and more of, where people make their claim for power, excellence, recognition, status, public preferment, not by their achievements or their character, but by their wounds. Like, I'm maimed, I'm a victim, waving their bloody stump at you. You gotta give me a great job. Look how crippled I am, and how people have treated me badly. And I'm all for sympathy. I don't want people treated badly, but I'm not quite sure that is your main way to preferment for for an important job. But anyway, here we have even got in Australia demands from the Labor Party for an Aboriginal-only advisory parliament. Where does this all end?
Well, you mentioned wounds and suffering. It's weird. You used the word crippled or genuine physical wounds, but that's not what they're interested in, Andrew. They don't care about physical or genuine grievances or genuine victimhood, such as you've described. Maybe losing a leg or whatever. Sure, they pay a bit of attention to that, but the wounds and the grievance we constantly hear about, going back to what you were just talking about with Prue and Tina. Two of the wealthiest, most pampered individuals on the planet are claiming to be wounded, and you have to look pretty hard to find what that wound is, because it's not one that's immediately apparent. And we're hearing so many of these grievances are actually increasingly in the mind, or some kind of personality perceived aggression or whatever it might be against them. And yet human beings have never had it so good.
Or their great-grandfather,
Exactly.
great-great-grandmother or something.
And humans have never had it so good, Andrew. They've never had it so good. We've never been so well off and comfortable as we are now. No.
And so you have people who didn't commit the offence apologising to people who didn't suffer the offence, because it was their tribe who did it to their tribe way back when. And maybe it didn't actually happen, but it doesn't matter. If you question it, you're racist.
Exactly.
Talk about activists being exactly now what they claim to fight, which is a really interesting phenomenon now, Rowan. In fact, the theme of tonight, as you've suggested. What do you make of the aggressive activists of the compassionate left, more moral than thou, more compassionate than thou, who actually managed to drive Liberal MP Nicole Flint to quit Parliament with all the harassment and bullying? Here's some of her speech last night.
I say to the Leader of the Opposition, I will not be lectured by you. I will not be lectured by your side of politics about the treatment of women in this place. I asked the Leader of the Opposition, where was he and where was his predecessor and where were the senior Labor women when Get Up Labor and the union supporters chased, harassed and screamed at me everywhere I went in the lead up to the 2019 election.
Now, what does that tell you, Rowan?
Oh, absolutely disgraceful. And Nicole Flint is a wonderful human being. She's a warm, intelligent, passionate person. She was an absolute gift to the Liberal Party, in fact, an absolute gift to Australian politics, to have someone of that talent, that skill, that drive in the Parliament. And, we talk all the time about let's get more women, let's get more this, let's get more that. Here was a woman that every girl in Australia could look up to as a role model, someone to be proud of, someone to emulate. And yet she was literally physically hounded during the 2019 election. There was some extremely grubby activity, which you highlighted on your show. We talked about it on Outsiders. Nicole came on Outsiders and talked about it. Absolutely devastating stuff, driven by left-wing activists. And Nicole is absolutely right to point a finger at the Labor Party, because it doesn't matter what arm's length they try and pretend they're from. They are very closely linked to Get Up. They certainly never condemned Get Up's actions against Nicole. They certainly never condemned, or we never heard them condemn, what Nicole was going through. And the fact that she has been driven out of politics, and the fact that the Labor Party did not beg her to stay in politics, shows what absolute hypocrites they are. And this endless smearing the Conservatives and Scott Morrison and the Liberal Party as being, having a problem with women or whatever, when the Labor Party themselves were prepared to stand by and watch what happened to Nicole, and others, by the way. There are plenty of other Conservative women that similar things have happened to. It's utterly disgraceful.